Welcome to the latest away league match preview of the 25-26 season here on Stones TV and the Maidstone United podcast, where we look ahead to the last match day in August down at Worthing. So 2 games in a little over 48 hours in the last bank holiday weekend. A rather uninspiring goalless draw at home to Chelmsford City, maybe 24 hours too early for both sides. That was preceded by our first game against AFC Tottenham in just under 21 years, with the Stones run out 1-0 winners in an end-to-end game that could have been 5-5 if the Stones' penalties and Stags' chances had been converted. Nigel, thoughts on that blockbuster bank holiday bonanza of football, sir?
Bank holiday bonanza of football, yeah. I mean, I suppose we've got to talk about the elephant in the room and the missed penalties, haven't we?
Yes.
You know, I mean, coming off the back of the Hampton and Richmond game before that on the Tuesday evening, and missing the penalty there. Yeah, it's just a Stones way, isn't it? We just make it hard for ourselves, don't we?
Just a bit, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That should have been a 3-0 game, and all managers have said it throughout time. You can't practice. You can practice penalties in training, but until it comes down to that situation, you can't practice it, can you?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, just got to keep ticking at it, and we are going to get penalties again, and the way we play, and crosses in the box, and that's just the nature of it. So hopefully, that tide will turn in our favour. But
and it wouldn't surprise me, Nigel, if it is one of those 3 who have already missed, does go on a la Ben Brooks, takes it by the scruff of the neck and goes, actually, screw this, I'm going to start scoring these now, the next half dozen we've got, I'll take on this. Because clearly for Gilbert, it was too soon for him. I think, like Fred said on the hot take, I think it was just a bit too much talking about it, and there wasn't a decisive, right, it's yours, that's it. Because obviously the skipper's in there, he missed one. There's all sorts of stuff going on.
Yeah, and then the second one we had on Saturday, young Loney Ulrich come on to him, Patrick Casey wanted to take it.
Yeah.
Well, fair play to him, for someone like that coming in, but he's got to know his place in the team, hasn't he? Do you know what I mean? But again, that shows that there's no lack of players that want to take them.
Yeah.
So and it's like they all say, isn't it? Once you fall off the horse, you just go straight back on it, and you get in, So, and just the irony of it was, Saturday, what was it? 20 odd miles down the road, Aaron Blair was taking a penalty for Eastleigh and slotting it away at the same time that Dion Moore was taking E. So, it's just one of those things. I mean, when we had Regan here, didn't we? If you find a penalty taker that's very, very consistent and scoring their goals, and we had it last year with Ben Brooks, he was taking them all the time, and then you've got to find another one to take them. But once you get get one, it'll be fine. So, but as a performance itself, again, the clean sheets, very, very, very good. I mean, even after 5 games, we've now got the best defensive record in the league again, and one of those 2 goals that we conceded was a penalty, ironically.
That's true. Yeah.
So we've only conceded 1 goal from open play in 5 games. So
and
again,
you reflect upon that with the clean sheet record was so good last season, but it was sort of a bit tarred with some of the bulk of the conceding potentially done from set plays. So touch wood, so far they've been fairly well managed.
That's we've said it before. That's George's DNA, isn't it? He's going to build from the back first, and it was no sort of like coincidence that when the squad was being built, it was the defensive unit that was in place first. I know we signed John Gilbert as our first signing, but the majority of the early signings were all the defensive players. With like Cisse coming in, Lexus Beeden coming in. Obviously, we retained George Fowler.
Even Nathan Harness as well in goal. He was probably one of the first ones signed, to be fair, but just not formally until his contract expired.
Exactly that. So, and you can see as well, I think, and that was especially evident in that game against Chelmsford on Bank Holiday Monday, whereas last season we was, at times it seemed that we was just aimlessly, booting the ball up into space for Aaron Blair to run onto. You can see even with Nathan Harness's kicking, it annoys me a little bit. It's one of the things about modern football. You've got a player on the touchline and you literally aim it for them. But it is coming off because Dion Moore is winning that ball, and then we're so, our shape is so good, we're picking up on those second balls, and then you're onto that pressure. And, you know, like I say, against Chelmsford, people are saying it wasn't a great game for the neutral.
No.
But on that, we had, you know, looking back at the highlights, we had 3 clear-cut chances. You know, George Farrell and that tip over the Haig tipped that one over the goal. There's young Golding had one where he, you know, did really well, cut inside, just couldn't get that curve on it to drop inside that near post. And then Mbwezi right at the end there, you know, should have got it on target really.
Yes.
You know, but I can't really recall Chelmsford having a shot on target. I mean, Harness came out in the first half, didn't he, and denied that goal scoring chance, so they didn't really get a shot on target there. But and then Jack Barham made a breakaway in the second half, midway through the second half, but he then, I don't know what he was doing. It's very Jack Barham like, wasn't it? You know, I think he tried to swing it across him for the oncoming player, and just lack of communication, the ball went out. But then that's credit to Maidstone, because like we said in the preview, you've got to deny Jack Barham that space to run into, and we did it pretty much.
Nearly all of it,
you know,
exactly.
And shout out to TJ Bramble as well. I mean, I think he's, over these 5 games, he's really been a revelation. He's, like we've said before, he's just the nitty-gritty stuff. Wins the ball, gives it away. Just that teams are not playing through us, and excuse me, we've got that control in the middle of the park. And there was a bit of a spell in that first half against Chelmsford where we were literally spraying the ball around, and you know, we are getting it down a lot more. You know, you can see that we're trying to improve and trying to be more expansive in our play, but at the same time still keeping that defensive foundation in place. So, you know, from my point of view, you can't argue with three clean sheets on the bounce, you know.
Yeah, it's very promising signs for Maidstone. TJ Bramble amongst some who we'll mention in the Player of the Month video, potentially. Also, just a very quick shout out to Chris Haig. Clearly must watch us and know about it. 19 conceded in 8 games, just so he's got that little mark against his name, so he knows we've acknowledged that. But as you say, 4 points from that weekend. Not too bad, really.
No, not at all.
Another signing to add to the squad's depth, centre-forward Patrick Casey was announced on the morning of the trip to Totton. An exciting prospect according to all who know him. He joins on an initial 28-day loan from Charlton Athletic, and he nearly added to his reputation by almost scoring within 5 minutes of his debut at Totton. Your thoughts on his acquisition, Nigel?
I think it's all credit to George and Craig and how they work with these forwards. You know, I think, you know, Charlton Academy, you know, or like their sort of youth system is well renowned, and obviously they're in the Championship now. So to pick one of their sort of young bucks up, you know, and he's, from the reports I've seen and that I've heard good things about him, even on the Charlton forums, you know, they praise him up. You know, he's going to be a real talent, and for them to trust him to come to us probably shows where we are as a club now. Yeah. Yes, we've had players from them sort of academies before, and then that youth set up, but they've sort of been like first years, you know, people that
a bit wet behind the ears. Let's be fair.
Yeah, I mean, so you know, obviously they expect big things of him, and the fact that they trust him with us, and you know, like I said, but you know, he scored like you said in 5 minutes of coming on, and looking at him, you know, he's very energetic. He adds that little bit of pace across the front line, very much like we was talking about with Jack Barham and Aaron Blair in that sort of mould of player. And yeah, we can only learn from, you know, having Craig Fagan as like the assistant manager that's going to work with these forwards, you know, the experience that he's got in the game, and if he can just pass some of that on and just help him with his development, then it's a win-win for everyone, isn't it? You know, it helps Patrick with his career, and hopefully we'll be able to score the goals for us, and you know, be a bit of a trailblazer for people to come behind him, and you know, and going forward as well.
Yeah, sounds good to me. So to our opponents this weekend, it's Worthing, their summer transfer activity, their departures to start with, and Joe Partington retired. Cameron Tutt, Ollie Black, Finn Chadwick and Jack Bates all left. Liam Nash signed for Billericay Town. Both keepers, Lucas Coverland and the aforementioned Chris Hay, left, as did Tommy Willard. Mo File departed for foreign shores. Danny Cashman rejected an offer from the club and eventually signed for Crawley Town. Alfie Young left and youngster Arthur Gregory was signed by Wycombe Wanderers. And most recently, winger Ollie Starkey joined Lewis on dual registration for the season. Along with all those departures, Nigel, possibly the biggest transfer news in either direction, you could argue, is that of manager Chris Agata, who signed a new 4-year deal within a space of a few days of the playoffs and last season ending. Your thoughts on all of those players that he ultimately let go, as well as his long-term deal?
Yeah, it's unusual at this level, isn't it,
Yes.
to have such a long deal, but I suppose it's just that continuity that Worthing are on, really. I mean, Hinshaw was there for a while, wasn't he, before he went off to York, and yeah, I mean, it's good to see, really, in a way.
Yeah.
You want to build something, don't you? You don't want to keep chopping and changing after a year or two, do you? And I think he's, they're in a very similar position to us, really. I mean, they've lost a lot. All teams at this level lose players because that's just the nature of it. Because you're never, if you are on long-term deals, then either you get snapped up and you go higher. But that's kind of what's happened to them, isn't it? They're big players that they've lost. They've lost. I mean, they've lost Cashman and Mo Fowl and the likes, and Liam Nash, going down to Billericay. He scored goals for them. They're big players to replace, aren't they?
When we say about the money sloshing around in South, obviously in the step below us as well, be it Billericay.
Oh yeah,
all sorts of teams throwing it around at the moment.
I think as well. I think they're sort of going down that sort of similar to us again in that sort of hybrid route. But they've acquitted themselves well. They've always got to since they've been in the National League South. They're one of the teams that you always expect to be up there. They've sort of that sort of consistency in the top 7, aren't they? But I suppose it's the natural sort of course of losing your better players. You've now got to take that next step, because it's a different pool of players that you're picking up now, aren't you? Because they've got to be these hybrid sort of part-time, full-time sort of players, so if they've got a good job elsewhere, then they're not going to be necessarily be good for you, are they? So again, it's their recruitment team sort of looking at a different pool of players and getting those players in. I mean, they've got the young lad that we talk about him, but they're looking at sort of like the West Ham Academy and people things like that. But again, you've still got to get these players to gel, isn't you? That's where we're sort of a little bit ahead of them, maybe, in the fact that we've done that before. We've done that last year, so we learn from that, don't we? We've made a better start this year than what we did last year because we've learned from them. Not mistakes, but we've just done things a little bit differently last year. And just talking about the Cavallo, George was like that in the press. We're not going to rush him back. We're going to take time with him and invest in the player. And you have to look at last year and the injuries that we had, and we seem to be sort of in a better place this year. So that's sort of where we are. As they're very similar. Like we've said it before with Worthing, haven't we? They've sort of become our modern day rival. I mean, 2 playoff campaigns, and we've played them, a win each in those playoff campaigns, and in the league games we sort of match them, and they sort of it's win one, lose one sort of a scenario as well, isn't it? So, yes,
indeed. So those are the players that have left. Those that have come in, starting with the goalkeepers, and Seb Stacey signed on a season-long loan from MK Dons, whilst goalkeeper Taylor Seymour signed terms for the following season as he continues his knee rehab. There's some rather young keepers there, Nigel, looking at their ages in between the sticks. A lot of responsibility on those shoulders, perhaps.
Losing someone of the stature of Chris Haig, and even having Lucas Collins as a backup, that's a pretty handy backup to have there, isn't it?
Indeed.
So, you're always going to have that sort of experience gap wherever you bring in, aren't you? Unless you're going to really go and splash the cash and get a really recognised keeper. But I suppose one good thing is that they can sort of bounce off of each other and try and help each other along. And again, that's going to just take time to bed in and know the patterns of play and know when to come for balls and when to stay on your luck. All that kind of thing.
I mean, Seymour's been at the club for quite a while as a young prospect. Stacey coming in from a Football League side and having some limited experience there. As you say, they could very well dovetail this season, I think.
Yeah.
And certainly for Seymour, with his rehabilitation that he's still in the middle of. I think he was on the bench finally this season for their Bank Holiday Monday game. So at least they have now got that second option to be able to go between the two, it seems.
Exactly that. And it's, again, we know Worthing have got a very set pattern of play. So, again, they like to use their keepers. Like we've said before, when Chris Haig was there, always like a sweeper keeper, like an extra central defender, really. So you've got to be confident in that, and the back four have got to have confidence, or the back three, whichever you're playing, they've got to have confidence in you. So it's just getting that communication right. And these things are just not going to be instant, are they? They've got to be. They've got to take time. So that's the joys of early season, isn't it? Again, we're playing them quite early on, really. Yeah. So I don't think either team's going to be at their full stride. So it's going to be, again, who can exploit each other's weaknesses and at the same time enhance their better points as well. Yeah. What team can make a stamp on each other.
Exactly. So in defence, skipper Joel Colburn signed on for 25-26. Joe Cook was already under contract for the coming season. Aaron Racine signed for this upcoming season. Then Dean Hammond was appointed as assistant manager. That was able to allow Aaron Racine to step away from coaching to concentrate solely on his playing this season. Toby Byron signed from Wingate and Finchley for an undisclosed fee. Harry Ransom signed after leaving Sutton United. Young defender Danny Jordan signed professional terms after helping Worthing under-18s to a treble last season. I think a few of our kids know a thing or two about a treble at that age range as well. And finally, Sams, Beard and Packham signed on again for 25-26 and were part of the club's retained list at the end of May. So Nigel, there's a number of defenders that have served them for a number of years and some additions to freshen things up perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, Ransom's one that sort of stands out. I think he was at Millwall, it's been Dover and Sutton and Crawley. He was at Crawley for a spell as well, so he's definitely got that little bit of experience. And then, I mean, when you got Rancine in now, I mean, he took over from Inchelwood when he left at the back end of that season, didn't he? And he was on the coaching staff last year. So again, it's just somebody with that experience and that voice on the pitch. So you'd expect them to sort of. There's a lot of stability there in that defence. Yeah. But again, where there's probably they've lost the likes of Cashman and that up front. They say defending is from the front as well. So they're probably having to go through a little bit more work than what they're used to in the defensive side of it.
Acquainted, isn't it?
Yeah. But again, looking at the results, I mean, we're coming through to the results, but they've lost a few games, but they haven't got. It's only by the odd goal, isn't it?
So. Of them,
they've never been. I mean, I remember last season. I think with the St Albans game was the opening game of the season. It was like 4-3 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
they've scored a lot. They've scored a lot of goals, but they do concede a lot of goals as well. So, again, it's just a different way of a different mantra of what they've got. It's almost like the old school days, old school football, isn't it? We're just going to score one more goal than you, and they had the players that could do that. But when you're bedding new players in, new forward players, it's a little bit more difficult, and you don't want to be conceding 2-3 goals every game to have to score 4 with a new squad. So that's the adjustment they're making at the moment, I think. Yeah. But I mean, that's the continuity there for the defence, isn't it? Again, it's just all that bedding in process.
Exactly. Their midfield consists of Kwaku Frimpong. He joined from Carshalton Athletic. Matt Burgess signed from Bognor Regis Town. And ex-Stone Razak Coleman de Graft signed after leaving Hornchurch at the end of last season. Bailey Smith, Jack Spong, Glenn Rea, Odai Martin Sorondo and Nicky Wheeler all signed on again for the upcoming season. So Nigel, for midfield, see defence most of last season's faces, a couple of new faces, and a new face that's an old one for the Stones. I think I've got that right.
It's going to be interesting to see how Razak does get on there. I mean, again, as well, the likes of Jack Spong, he's a big player in this league. He's a big player for Worthing. But last year he had Danny Cashman there again, that sort of dovetailed him a little bit really. But now he is the main man. You know what I mean? So he's got that little bit of responsibility. Talented player, absolutely. One of the best midfielders in the league without a doubt. But again, you got Razak coming in, and he's not used to their sort of patterns of play. He's not, of that skill set of what Danny Cashman is. No disrespect, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but he offers different things.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that powerful running from Razak. Ironically, the Maidstone goal that he scored was against Worthing in that 4-0 game, wasn't it? So
indeed.
But yeah, again, it's just there is a continuity there, but you've still got to bed in those new players to replace those them big name players that have moved on.
Yeah. So up top, and Anointed Chukwu signed for the 25-26 from Enfield Town. He got double-digit goal contributions for them last season. Striker Brad Dollahan signed following his release from West Ham. He had a previous spell at Woodside in the 23-24 season. Nathan Odokonyero signed permanently from Ebbsfleet after a loan spell with Worthing last season. And Temi Babalola signed on again for this upcoming season. Nigel, they really have lost a huge number of goal scorers over the last couple of years, Mo Farr, Ollie Pearce, etc. And they have some familiar faces in their ranks still, though.
Donnellan, is Donnellan the one from West Ham?
Right, yes.
He's the one that they're pinning their hopes on because he's a local lad, and he's had that sort of experience in the West Ham set up, and apparently from what I've heard, he's a player for them, and they're hoping that he does come good and sort of is the Danny Cashman replacement. But again, these things take time. It's not going to be an instant thing, is it? Yeah. And like you say, they have lost a lot of goals, and it's just a lot of the players that are left. They seem to be players that need 2 chances to score a goal. Do you know what I mean? And that's sometimes you've got to be a bit more ruthless at this level.
Yeah.
If you're they're a possession-based team, aren't they?
Yeah.
So when you're playing that sort of possession-based football, you are going to naturally create those chances. But when you haven't got as much of the ball maybe as what they're used to, again, this is where I'm saying, the players have got to take those chances when they come along. It will come again for them. I'm sure it will, because the same management's there, and like you said, they've got that same spine of that team. But until it does all click, they've got to sort of, take those chances when they come. And it would seem by the results that they've had recently that they're not. So that's where the problem lies. But
exactly.
I'm sure it will click, but it's like we say with all these games, just not until after Saturday. Please.
Exactly, if you don't mind. So in terms of form, last season in National League South, they were one of that sextet that all had days, all weeks on top of the division, culminating in an Easter weekend where they played a pair of rivals and still ended up in the last day shootout, finishing 4th, losing their quarter-final at home to the Stones, who avenged the semi-final defeat from the year before. The pre-season fixtures included home games against, like the Stones, Chatham, and, unlike the Stones, West Ham. 4 wins, a draw, 2 defeats. They scored 13, conceded 9. They've played 5 games in the league this month, which Nigel's alluded to once or twice already today. They opened at home to Bath City with a 1-1 draw before trips to Horsham, which was a 4-3 win for the Rebels. Farnborough and Chippenham were both 1-0 losses on the road. So that away trio garnered 3 points from 9. Also a goalless home game against Enfield just the other day. So after 5, they sit in mid-table, 5 from a possible 15 points, having not scored in their last 3 after that glut at Horsham, Nigel. A slow start last season too. So how do you rate their chances this season? Is it another playoff campaign or something different perhaps?
I don't know. I mean, of those teams that were chasing that title going into the sort of like Easter weekend, they're the ones that I would think bottled it the most.
Yes.
Not, it's a strong word, bottled it, but
didn't win. This is effectively the same
it was
thing.
in their hands, wasn't it? It was in their hands, going into that, even after that Dorking defeat or on Good Friday, going into them last 2 games, it was still in their hands.
They still had Eastbourne
and
on
when you're
Monday,
looking at the fixtures, you would say just get that Eastbourne game out of the way, and then it was theirs, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And then obviously we know what happened in that they had that week off. They didn't play. Did they? No, they played us. They played us in the limo. That's right.
Before, wasn't it?
But then they obviously we beat them 2-0 at their place. They got the home. Again. They still had the home advantage. Yeah, I mean there's going to be a bit of a hangover there. And last year with Chris Akatari, obviously he was coming in, taking over from Hinchelwood. It was his first season, so you kind of get that little bit of a honeymoon period. But with that big contract that he's getting, again, we've said it with all these managers or these big clubs, there's comes a little bit of a pressure, because of what you did last season, and you've got to sort of, there's a certain expectation on you to perform, haven't you? So again, it's how they cope with it. I think, that I think they'll be out there challenging, at least for, whether it be for a title, or at least a top 7 place in the playoffs. But we've said it again previously, with them 3 big teams coming down from the National League South, there's more teams in that pot now, isn't there?
Exactly.
And then you've got currently got Hornchurch sitting at the top of the table, and they could potentially be this year's Truro. That come from nowhere sort of thing, but everyone thinks they're going to sort of fall away. But again, similar to Truro last year, having John Askey in charge, they've got Daryl McMahon in charge. So. Again, he's a very experienced manager, not just at this level, but the level above.
Yeah.
So it's just every year that these teams are in it. It's not a given that they're going to be out there again.
Yeah.
You've got to reset, try and find a different way to improve yourself. So again, they've got the tools there, and they're a club that are progressing. They're having to build their stadium up, and we know from the media side of it that they're building all that up. So all these things take that little bit of budget that you've got. So again, it's just where your priorities lie. But I'm sure there'll be one of the teams that are up there because just it's just in the DNA of the club. Yeah. But it's something that you've got to work at and like I say, find that formula that's going to progress you on.
Exactly. And you mentioned Hornchurch there, the very briefest of stat attacks for you to mention that it's literally ourselves, Maidstone and Hornchurch, currently, already after 5 games, the only 2 who haven't lost already in the league this season. So, like we've been saying in these previews already this season, Nigel, anybody beats anybody at this stage of the season.
They do.
It's really been so true.
Absolutely. You just see some really weird results at this time of the year, don't you? I mean, even looking at that last the bank holiday weekend, you'd have thought the Ebbsfleet would, from our point of view, we'd always lose to Slough, but lose to Slough and then only get a draw against Bath. And again, you see teams up there like the likes of Bath, and I know Weston was up there last year, but all these teams that are not predicted to be up there, a good start, and where you're sort of a solid team and you're progressing, there's no guarantees that you're going to fall away. Even Dover, they've made a very good start. Again. That sometimes that momentum and that sort of like can just propel you, and the longer you stay up there, the longer you're in the mix, and things start going in your favour, don't you?
Yeah, and the longer you feel like you should be there, and that consistency breeds from there. So in the head-to-head of the previous clashes between the 2 sides, 11 matches in the last 15 years or so, still 6 home wins in total as it was this time last season. 2 for the Stones, and all 3 away winners in last season's 3 meetings. Of course, ending with that playoff quarter-final victory for the Stones, replicating the 2-0 win from earlier in the season. Do you think that away record's going to continue come Saturday, Nigel?
I don't make predictions.
I never have and I never will.
No, well, I just, I think we're in a good. I think we're where we need to be at this stage of the season. You can see what we're trying to do. Like I said at the top of the preview, we have evolved a little bit from last year, and you can sort of see those different patterns of play coming in. And what I think is pleasing, probably Jeffy needs a goal, but the likes of Goldie, Moore, Gilbert, they've all scored goals. I mean, we're not great goal scorers. We're not scoring hatfuls. Maybe if we'd taken our penalties, we would be. But that's but they've all got goals behind them.
Yeah.
So that you know, that again, we're talking about confidence, and that breeds confidence. So, you know, yeah, I'm sure, you know, probably Sam Corr might pop up with his customary goal against Worthing. So
that'd be nice. Yeah.
You know, yeah, I think it's all the ingredients are all there to, you know, to go into the game certainly positive, and hopefully, like you say, we can continue that trend of away victories.
Will be good. So remember, the Worthing fixture is both segregated and all ticket. Purchases can be made via Fanbase ahead of the game if you wish to attend. And if you can't make it to the game on Saturday, be sure to tune in to Darren and myself from 2:40 on Stones Live. You'll see us on the hot take and then hear us on the highlights once they go online. So August has been a pretty decent month for the Stones, an unbeaten beginning to the season. They'll look to continue the positive vibes down near the coast once more. 2-0 wins down there last season for the Stones. Here's hoping they can keep that run as well as their current unbeaten start to the season intact. Our thanks to you all out there as ever for watching or listening to the latest preview. Like and subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for the Maidstone United podcast. See or hear you for our next preview ahead of another league away game. A long midweek trip to last season's 8th place finishers, Western Supermare. And as always,
Come on, you Stones!